Shock is a multi-season rank 1 player, currently over in Korea for a bootcamp. He's sitting at a whopping 853 LP, killing it with a 57% win rate, but today we specifically looked at his Cassiopeia. Now he has a 68% win rate over 72 games. We actually went over one of his recent games. Now we chatted about itemization, what are his thoughts about how he likes to play waves in the early game, kind of mid-game translating leads, team fighting and ability usage. So let's go ahead and dive into the details, guys.
I definitely have a very different approach, I think, to Cassio than a lot of other people do when it comes to itemization. And the big difference that I have compared to other people is that I really don't like Rod of Ages as an item. So the reason I don't like Rod of Ages is for a couple of reasons. One, it's a really good neutralizer, but it's not very good at snowballing. And the game is just very fast paced at the moment. And, if you're getting a lead in lane, you really want to be able to snowball that lead further, right? You want to be able to take more fights, get more farm, all that sort of stuff. And Roa is kind of the opposite of all that. Like, yes, when completed, it is a pretty good item on Cassio, but it slows you down a lot. And also, as I'll kind of mention in a moment, it really restricts your item slots. So for me, I only build Rod of Ages in like very bad matchups or ones where I just like need to be as tanky as possible. So examples could be something like LeBlanc, it's a bad matchup and an assassin. So you really need to be just as tanky as possible. But personally, I try and avoid matchups where I would have to build Rod of Ages. So instead, I always, unless, absolutely necessary, I always go Seraph's first item. I think just, rushing it out as quick as possible gets you a lot of mana. It's still very, very good at helping you snowball and fight anyone. Then after that, I pretty much always second and third item, Liandry's and Rylai's, depending on kind of like a little bit of like what I need in the moment and what my build's going to look like later. So if you're not sure, you should just go second item Liandry's. It's a really good damage spike, and it also it means that you can just go into whatever other damage items you want beyond that point, and it's completely fine. Like you can go, for example, Seraph's, Liandry, and then just like a Crypt Loom. Like if you really need the magic pen or something, you can do that. But Rylai's, I think, synergizes so well with Cassio that you should be trying to buy that. And Rylai's second is really good, especially if you're snowballing really hard and actually don't need more damage. All you need to do is actually keep people closer to you and kill them. It's also really good against some of the shorter range comps just to kite out the melees. And I would say that, yeah, while my default is Liandry second, there are still a fair amount of games I go Rylai second. And then probably in about 90% of games, I just build the other one third. So if I end up with Liandry second, I go Rylai's third, and the other way around. The main time I don't do that is, for example, if I know that I'm going to need some sort of like, let's say I know I'm going to need a Crypt Loom third because my team is really heavy on magic magic damage or something. What I will probably do is go Seraph's Liandry Crypt Loom and just drop the Rylai. Like Rylai is more droppable than Liandry.
And I really don't for damage, right? Like if you don't go Liandry, you're just lacking damage.
Yeah, and I think it's better to drop Rylai's than to delay Death Cap. Like I don't think it's worth going, say, Seraph's, Liandry, Rylai, Crypt Loom Death Cap. Like if I'm needing the Crypt Loom, I will drop my Rylai and move every item one item earlier in order to still get that Death Cap by 4 items. Because Cassio has very high AP ratios, and she also just like, with Conqueror, with Darkseer, we'll just end up with a lot of AP as well. So I really value getting the Death Cap, and that's going to be your big, late game spike. And then, now I kind of understanding all that. That's why I hate Roa, is because when you go Roa, it's like, well, you can either go Roa Seraph's or you can go Seraph's Roa, but then it's like, okay, if we want these big ticket items later, we either have to delay them a ton, like looking at Death Cap like 5th or 6th, or we have to drop one of Rylai and Liandry. And I think they're just so synergistic with Cassio that I really don't like doing it unless absolutely necessary. And again, like you can build Roa and there's matchups where you really need health early, but something I don't do often, but sometimes do, is you can go, say, tier Rylai if you want health still, but don't want to buy Roa. Like that's how much I hate Roa, is I will try and literally just buy the other items earlier in order to not buy it.
Yeah, it's very interesting because traditionally, though, if you think about Cassio has loved Roa. Like if you think in the past, Seraph's Roa was kind of her baby, right? That was like the 2-item kind of combo that everyone would go for. And so much that like, the whole idea that Cassio was a 2-item spiking champion kind of revolved around the Seraph's Roa. It's like, okay, I'm getting my Roa. I'm not going to be able to do jack shit with it. But then later on, when I get my Seraph's and Roa, I'm going to be a beast and I can kind of 1v9. I think, look, Roa, primarily, if you're building Roa, right? you need to get mega value from the durability. Right, that's it, and I think that extends to all champions, not just Cassio, right?
Yeah.
Like if you need to get mega value from the durability because it's such a slow item, and you get no haste, right? And
Yeah, that's a
Cassio
big problem
also,
too. Yeah.
that's a huge problem. Now, I will say one thing that actually really hurt Cassio is the lack of haste with this build as well. You're not getting any haste from Rylai's. You're not getting any haste from Leandris. So the only haste is really coming from your Archangels. So that means you, like, I think, yeah, I would highly prioritize one row of the ability haste here and definitely Transcendence because other and this actually, by the way, Legend
Yeah,
haste.
that's
Holy
quite
moly,
nice.
that's
Yeah.
a game changer actually when you think about it because we never used to have that option, right? And back in the day.
Yeah, it does feel good. I will say that the Legend Haste, like, there are games where now you have no access to Tenacity because obviously Cassio can't buy boots, whereas previously, like, you'd still be okay even though you couldn't buy mercs
True.
because you could take Legend Tenacity. But I think overall, most games, it is better to have Legend Haste than it was to have Legend Tenacity.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, out of interest, do you ever start tier? Because I know tier start was quite common on
Um,
Cassio.
Yeah, I am also kind of a tier start hater. So I think there are, if it's a matchup that you think is going to be really uninteractive, like either they're too tanky to kill you, but they also can't, or sorry, they're too tanky for you to kill, but they can't kill you either, or there's just going to be, like lots of farming or something. I think you can start tier them, but I would say in probably about 90 to 95% of games I start deering. I find that the extra combat power early game is just too important. And that could somewhat be just like in the higher elos, right? When people are really going to punish those like minute differences. If you're laning against something like, let's say you're laning against like Lucian, right? Like Cassio can beat Lucian, but it is pretty damn close. And I think that, even if you have the tier and have more mana, it doesn't actually matter if you just kind of like lose the trade. But I will say that it probably is easier to play with tier start, but I do think Doran's Ring is stronger.
Now, a few other questions. Do you ever go kind of like a 3 points queue in range matchups, or do you primarily always just go Emax?
Yeah, so the thing is, like, I mean, to start with, I try and avoid range matchups. Like, I think range matchups do just suck for Cassio. I know there are some Cassios that play like Airy Scorch 3 points Q into the range matchups. Personally, I don't go for this because what I've found is that even though it like does help you lose, or yeah, I guess like lose less in your matchup, it's very unlikely that you're able to actually kill someone, and it makes your skirmishing so much weaker as a result. So I guess like if you think that you're just going to be unable to play the game whatsoever and you're kind of forced into doing that, then I think it's something you can do for more lane pressure. But ultimately, I think it is something you should try and avoid because it can kind of end up with you having no win con. Like, sure, you're not losing as much CS to a Syndra or whatever as you would before, but you also now just like don't win skirmishes either. So it's like, what really is your win con?
Now, tying back to Lolalytics here, let's take a look at some statistics. So what I've done is I've gone mid, diamond plus, right? So if we take a look at itemization here, if we take a look at the highest win rate build, now the sample size admittedly for a lot of these isn't actually that high. Actually, to make it a bigger one, let's go Emerald plus because I think it'd be interesting to see Emerald. So we've got the most common build is Roa Archangels, which does make sense, right? I mean, that's kind of been what most people have been recommended for a very, very long time. And then you've got Roa first into Archangels, which is interesting at a 56% win rate. You got Seraphs into Roa at 59, and then you've got no Roa here at 57. So it actually looks like the highest win rate build with a decent amount of sample size is actually the Seraphs into Roa rather than Roa into Seraphs, which is interesting.
Yeah, I have seen that a few times. Like, it is interesting to like delay the level up so that it's more powerful, and also like you still get the Seraph's rush. So I think, I think that's not too bad of an option. I guess again, the reason I don't like it is because like I think it's competing with other better items like Leandry, and I feel like the main reason to use Roa is to like help a bad matchup. So if you're buying it second, it's like not as good. But I do think, and probably why the win rate is high is that it probably is just much easier to play Cassio if you're way tankier.
It's
like
just
if you're
easier.
newer
It's
to
easy
the
to
champ,
execute.
it is easier to pull off for sure.
But at the end of the day, right, like you're a lot more limited for a long period of time when you have Roa. Like at least the last time I played Cassio, when I built in this build path, it's like, yeah, sure, I'm tanky, but I don't do anything. I'm not really doing much damage. I'm not really doing much. Okay, that'll make sense. Now, in terms of summoners, I didn't actually look at your summoners, so I'm assuming you would go TP majority of the time. Do you ever go Ghost?
I don't go ghost mid, but if you're playing bot or top, you actually have way more freedom of sums. It's weird. Like I think in mid you're basically locked to TP, although you can kind of, if you're against someone that you know will not be taking TP, like if you play against like a Fizz or something that's always going to take Ignite, I think then you can play a combat sum like a barrier or an exhaust or something like that. And there are maybe some matchups like Silas where if you really wanted to greed Ignite, you probably could. But I think TP is just way too important for mid lane. But again, I actually think that if you're playing bot or top, I do mostly take TP and bot or top, but there's much more variety. Like you can seriously consider Ghost, Barrier, Exhaust when you play the other lanes, and it's much more viable than it is for mid.
Now, let's talk for a second about Cassio, because I know you were one of the first people that I saw in OS that was actually playing Cassio in other roles and with success, right? Now, you've been very vocal about how Cassio is fundamentally, at the moment, just a better champion in bot and top. Now, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, the major reason that is the case is because of the range of the champions in that lane, right? So if you're playing bot, you're versing a lot of the time a lot of mid to low range AD carries. Whereas when you're in mid, you're versing a lot of higher range champions that are hard for you to gap close. And when you're in bot lane, I'm assuming supports facilitating you, giving you, I guess, an engage tool helps. What are some of the major things that make it better in your eyes, bot or top? We'll start with bot first, actually.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's pretty much exactly what you said. I think that the best matchups are actually in mid, but the average, like how good the average matchup is much better in the other lanes. And there is something also to be said that, like just because Cassio is a flex pick, like if you pick Cassio mid, or if you pick Cassio, they will probably assume it's mid, and then you might get a better matchup in your bot lane. But yeah, like most of the AD carry matchups tend to be much more favorable. There are definitely a few difficult ones, and also Mage's bot can be quite hard for you, but they're definitely, like overall, some of the harder matchups bot, like if you play against something like Caitlyn Lux, that is much less common than the like myriad of bad Mage matchups mid, So I pretty much exclusively use Cassio as a counter pick mid, but I'm very comfortable blinding Cassio in either top or bot and being like, there's like maybe a couple bad matchups I'd really like to avoid, but for the most part, it's going to be fine. And you also mentioned support combos. I think there are a lot of supports that are very good with Cassio. The main one I want to talk about is picking poison champs with it. I actually hate poison champs with Cassio. Like, I swear Cassio Twitch is awful. Cassio Timo is also awful.
You want
Cassio
engage,
Singe
no?
is not
you
bad.
Want like Nort, Leona, things like that, no?
Yeah, I think it's like you either want engage, like you said, like a Rel, Nautilus, Leona, Pike, like all those are fine. If you're playing range, you kind of want it to be like Cast Nami, similar to Cast Lucian, is quite powerful. Or you can play something that has kind of like sustain. Like I think Cassio's Soraka into like double range is not bad, or Cassio's Senna into double range. But yeah, like if I had my dream choice, like give me Leona every time. That's the best champ in the game, I'm pretty sure.
Well, because it solves one of Cassio's biggest problems, which is your ability to get onto the enemy, right? That's like one of because Cassio, like the way Cassio is balanced is that it's like you have a shit ton of damage. You're like an immobile machine gun, but the thing that you lack is mobility, right? You can't get that damage off. Okay, cool. I think that answers most questions about setup and I guess your philosophy on your setup. And I think runes are relatively straightforward. I don't really think that's anything too controversial. So yeah, I guess let's get into it, and then we can maybe start talking about the draft, and there's a few things you look for in draft. Okay, so diving into this game here. Now, you opted in for Cassio this game, and this is a very low range comp. This is actually Balkan, by the way. I just noticed.
I've versed him a few times.
Yeah, so for those of you not watching, Balkan, it was actually a pro player who came to OS from Korea, a bit of an import, a bit of a throwback there. But yes, low range composition. So typically when you're in select, you've obviously got Cassio as a bit of a pocket pick. What are you looking for from a draft perspective?
Yeah, so definitely like number one, obviously, is the mid matchup. So Cassio is ideal into any kind of like melee or tank is fine as well. You just want to avoid like longer range mages, stuff like, Lux, Zera, Cinder, Victor, Ori, Hui, all these are very, very difficult for Cassio. But anything like Echo, Silas, Yasuo, Yon, any like bruiser mid is pretty good. There are some assassin matchups which are good and some that are bad. Like something like Zed is not too difficult, and you can play Roa in that matchup. Assassins with gank setup are a lot harder, like a LeBlanc or a Fizz, I would try avoid. But yeah, these kind of like bruisers or melee assassins without gank setup are normally very good for Cassio.
Interesting. And so
Yeah,
this game, I mean, holistically, Karzak's, pretty low range. Let me actually just turn down the volume here. Sorry, a little bit here. Just gonna move this all the way down. So yeah, I mean, Echo very low range, which is great for you. Karzak's very low range. Aurora kind of like a mid-range champion. So
yeah,
overall, holistically, pretty good. Now look, they do have a decent amount of dive, which is, it's not the end of the world, but yeah, they have to come into you, which is fundamentally what Cassio wants, right? Now, versing an Echo, typically what's going through your mind in terms of your game plan and reference points? You want the wave on your side? Are you trying to hard shot? What are you trying to do?
yeah. So probably the biggest thing that people misunderstand about Cassio is the first three waves. So Cassio is actually a lot weaker levels 1 and 2 than people realize. And the main reason for that is because your E with like only 1 point in it just isn't really good mana efficiently. And so what happens is that I see a lot of people play for an all-in at level 1 or 2, and I will say that that is a bit easier with tier. But the problem is if you use too much mana at level 1 or level 2, you actually don't have enough mana for at level 3 when you have 2 points in E. So normally what I'm trying to do at level 1 and level 2 is I'm trying to abuse the fact that my E does have a lower cooldown than, well, just about anything else in the game, and use that in order to kind of get prior and get control of the first three waves. But that's more to protect myself rather than to actually like be aggro with it. And I think one of my main goals is to keep my mana at least above half and really try not to all in too much before level 3. Like if I have to trade a little bit like you saw level 1, I will, to make sure I get the prior. But I really want to make sure that I have enough mana in the pool basically, so that when I get 3 and get my 2 points in E, that at that point I can really start to heavy trade.
Yeah, no, I am a massive fan of also neutral state with Cassio. I think neutral state gives you a lot of flexibility with Cassio as well, right? Because you're not too vulnerable, but you also have room to chase down the enemy at level 3 as well. So I do like the wave state, and then we can actually just utilize this minion advantage here to get the wave in, crash, and then get it back out to the middle if need be, if he doesn't wave clear, of course. Like I love
Yeah.
this sort of wave states. Like I feel so free. Like I have so much flexibility.
Yeah. You can see at this point, like now that I have, the points in E, I'm definitely trying to like move a bit more aggressively. I definitely agree. Like I do want the wave mostly on my side here. The one thing to consider is that like if you freeze too hard here, you can be unable to contest the 330 scuttle. So like normally I try and like freeze it, so I have room to run them down. But also like I want to be able to respond. I don't want to build up a wave so big that means I just like can't leave my lane at all. So yeah, I try and leave myself with options, especially here because like I have a kindred, so I knew that it is very likely that scuttles will be highly contested. So yeah, I wanted to have options.
Would you say that's more of a you in Korea type thing, or would you say you do that no matter what? And would you
I would do
recommend for
that
other
no
people to
matter
do that?
what. Well, I don't know. Like, I feel like it is something that is definitely like way more common in Hilo and probably even more common in Korea. So like for the most part, you could probably just focus on like what's ideal for you and like not care too much about it. But I do think it should at least be like a consideration.
Okay. So, in terms of your first base, what are you aiming for? Are you aiming for like a tier plus something, or just tier? Are you happy, or what's your thought process there?
Yeah, so I think like you're only really unhappy if you base and don't have a tier. Like if you have a base before tier, it's pretty crushing. I think tier refillable, tier dark seal refillable, tier, dark seal sapphire, anything like that is fine. Yeah, I think getting the refillable is also quite important if you can, just because like Casio is short enough range that you're almost always gonna take damage no matter what you're playing against. So just having the extra 200 health feels really, really good. I think it also is nice. Like something you can do is if you feel like you're not going to get chapter on your second base, you can drop the dark seal in order to get a sapphire or something. Like I think it's very important that you get chapter by your second base. So like while I do try and get a dark seal in the early game, if I had the choice between say dark seal and sapphire, there's a good chance I just buy the sapphire to make sure that I have chapter on second base because
Right.
that is going to solve all your mana issues. So you really do need that, sooner rather than later.
I like how simple this early lane was. You didn't overcomplicate it. You really just focused on your farm. You weren't too concerned about the echo. And now you get a really, really good first base. You can get a Dark Seal. You get a refill. And look at that as an amazing base. That's basically going to secure you getting Lost Chapter on your next recall. You got a bit of
Yeah.
durability there from the Dark Seal, and you got nice sustain with the refill. That's a dream scenario. But I think you're right. A lot of people with Cassio, they overforce in that early lane, pre first base, and they get themselves into such shitty situations. I love how just poised you were. But this is also because you have the ability to be a little bit more relaxed because, again, Echo's not a super, annoying matchup, right? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you picked Cassio in this game for that reason.
Yeah.
Now, something that's worth noting, now you're post 6, you've got a bit of mana in your back pocket now. How does your mindset shift post first base? What are you typically looking for?
Yeah, so at this point, like you should have way more mana, both from your items, but also like stacked mana flow. At this point, you really do want to run people down the lane. So if you hit Q, you almost always want to commit to chasing, unless they have some ability that can keep you off. Again, something like a Syndra E that could like poke you away. Obviously, you don't want to chase into that, but if they ever like commit forward, feel free to even just use ult for the slow. A lot of the time, you don't actually have to stun with ult. A lot of the time, just the slow is enough to actually end up chasing someone down. And it depends kind of a little bit what you want to play for. Like if you think you can freeze and then just like stop your opponent from doing anything, you can keep the wave frozen. At the same time, like, having prio on this champ is still useful, right? Like you can poke a fair amount under tower against melee champs specifically. You're also very good in skirmishing. So if you do have prio and there's a fight in river, like Cassio's very, very good at that too. So yeah, I guess it's kind of dependent on how you think, or like, yeah, I guess what you think is the best avenue for you to snowball in, whether that's like, pushing and fighting in river. I will say you don't generally want to just like commit to full roams. Like Cassio's pretty bad at just like running to another lane. That's not really ideal. But outside of that, you have a fair few options.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just want to go back here because I think there's a lot of little things I just want to unpack in this whole sequence. So you come back. This is when you kind of come back. Echo starts to trade pretty heavy on you here. So you're kind of forced to use quite a bit of your mana defensively with some of these Ws here. Now, one thing that I will note is that you kind of play for prio here. Like it looks like you're actively trying to get the shove. Is this because you're trying to have adaptability to kind of complement what your Kindred does? Or is it more so you like making Echo react?
No, I'd say this is definitely like the prior thing. So like the sides were traded. So I know that Kindred wants to go into the bot side jungle. So it's like very important that I have prior to make sure Kindred can get that red. So this is probably more of a high-low thing, less lane focus. It's just like, I know if Kindred gets pushed off that red by Echo, the game is like really, really cooked. So I have to make sure that Echo at least is unable to move to it. Just to make sure he does get that red trade for Kha'Zix going top.
And if let's say hypothetically your jungler wasn't maybe as aggressive, or you didn't feel pressure to complement your jungler, you would probably be more content letting the wave come in a little bit onto your side.
Yeah, I think I'm just like either on my side or in the middle. Like the more distance you have to run down the lane, the better, and also the safer you are from ganks, the better. So yeah, while it is ideal to have the wave, I guess, like as close to you as possible, you don't want to have it so close that it like gives them free move into like, the river or whatever. And really try and this is something you should do on any mid, but really try and be focused on what your jungler is doing. Like it's so important as a mid laner to be like at least conscious of what your jungler is up to and like try facilitate that if you can.
Yeah, that's why I said at the beginning, I'm a massive fan of neutral state because it gives you, it's like best of both worlds. You can adapt and help your jungler if need be, but you can also, you have a little bit of room, a little wiggle room with your trading. That's why I'm personally, because I feel like back in the day, like it was all about getting the wave on your side and running people down. And yeah, you can do that situationally, of course, but more often than not, just the way that I feel like the game has evolved, it feels a lot harder to genuinely like freeze in mid. Like it feels like you're punished a lot more for it.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. It definitely limits like your jungler's options a lot.
Okay, so off the second base, you've now completed your Lost Chapter. So this stage as a Cassio, you're feeling good, right? You've got a lot of mana in your back pocket. You can definitely look to take some extended trades. So let's start to take a look at this one. So let's go back here. So you got your Lost Chapter. So let's see if we can deconstruct this all in here. So playing for prio, Kindred's hovering in the area, use your W kind of reactively here. Beautifully timed R there.
Yeah. So I guess there's like two things I was thinking here. Like one, obviously I have my jungler next to me, but two, like I know I will win any long trade. Like Cassio only really loses long trades if she runs out of mana because the combination of low CDs plus Conqueror means you're almost definitely, gonna win. So I knew like once he committed onto me here, especially when he was like down levels at the start of it, that it was gonna be good for me. And also, like with the ulti here, again, if this stuns, great, but I was going to use this even just for this low because I wanted to chase. And it's just like a bonus that it managed to get the stun off him on him.
What's your philosophy when it comes to R-ing in a situation like this? Like, what are maybe some mistakes you see with other people's Cassios that you feel as though you do a little bit better? Like, what advice would you give people here?
Yeah, probably the best thing is to make sure that it's like sort of hidden between your other abilities. Like I find at least in high elo, like if you use Castle on its own, you're never gonna hit it. Like it's gonna get dodged every time. But if you use Castle just kind of like randomly in between some of your Qs and Es, it's much, much harder to react to because like a lot of the time people are just looking not so much for the ult animation, but just for any animation. So again, if you have to cast it outside of any other abilities, like it's never gonna hit in high elo. But if you can just like do it in the middle of a trade and again, not worry too much about actually hitting the stun, it's almost always gonna, have at least some value for you.
If you look at Cassio's animations with the E and the Q and even the auto, they all are very similar. It's all like just your character leaning forward. Remember, there's that old school trick with Cassio where like you're autoing the tower and then you weave in your R when you're autoing because it looks like you're just gonna go for another R. It's kind of like that. But I love that. It's really, really good advice. Just quickly going back here. So it looks like basically what happened is your team went for an invade. You don't really want to leave the wave of neutral. You want to deny some farm here to cast it to the Echo. So you decide to move over. Now we do not have our R here.
Yeah, I think this might have still been winnable. The biggest problem here was that I missed that Q onto Aurora, and that's something that you guys are really going to feel. Like if you missed Q on Cassio, your DPS instantly just like plummets, So like at the start, I hit a Q on Braum, but I'm like, I kind of don't want to hit him. And then I missed the second Q onto Aurora. And then after that point, you can see that I just have no damage onto anyone. I think if I'd hit that, I think I still die, but I think the fight looks way better. So that's something you guys have to be very conscious of. Like if you can try and like, guarantee your Q with your W or your R or by following up on other CC, that's super critical because if you miss even one Q, it really hurts the fight. And if you miss two, like that is a good 6 or maybe even 8 seconds of just no damage whatsoever. So be super careful of that.
So, I guess now recapping, we're still not yet on our first item. You're farming pretty well, so you're doing a pretty good job there. And to be honest, that death is not really the end of the world. You don't really miss much farm, right? Because you're already shoved a wave in anyway. Yeah. So it's actually a pretty high value death anyway. So game's looking all right. It's pretty even, 6-4. Gold's pretty even. You're in a very commanding position here, I would say. So same thing, right? We're looking to play for prio / adaptability to our jungler. Don't have our... Actually, no, we do have our ultimate. So let's break this one down mechanically, and let's really take a look at this. So we don't really have any vision. Echo, we don't know where Echo was, right? No, Echo had TP top, sorry. Echo had TP top, so you saw Echo top side. So it looks like, I'm assuming your mindset here was trying to shove the wave into deny farm from Echo. Is that right?
Yeah, it was like, okay, first wave back on the map. Like, I really want to just shove and set up vision. And I was thinking, like, okay, I thought, I guess the Echo would, like, reset. But honestly, like, looking back, it doesn't really make much sense for him to reset. So I probably should have waited for Leona to be a bit closer before I, like, greeted for this wave. And I was kind of lucky, actually, that Kindred was here, because I think if Kindred weren't here, like that would have just been a free death. And Cassio is very gankable, especially without flash. That's again another window you guys have to be super careful of. You can turn ganks 1v2 a lot of the time, and your ult is a pretty short CD, but just be again super careful when you have like no vision or anything.
Okay, so now we've got completed our Seraphs. I mean, our Archangels, not yet our Seraphs. Now, what is your philosophy on neutral objectives with Cassio? Because I've always been a massive fan of shoving and moving to neutrals because it creates that scenario where people are coming towards you, where you can control those choke points. People are having to run over your W and R. How do you think about neutral objectives as Cassio?
I mean, I think just Cassio is good at skirmishing in general, so I'm definitely down to take fights in River. I think the one thing to be, I guess, like a little careful of is that in some early skirmishes, like it kind of can end up with just like both teams poking at each other, like without an actual fight starting. So like if a fight does start, that's obviously really good. But if it just ends up being like poke back and forth, then it can be like kind of awkward.
So what you're saying, just to kind of summarize that, is that it depends on the comp. If you're versing high range comps, you feel as though, you don't really want to play around those neutrals because you're going to get poked out. But if you feel as though the you're versing other mid to low range compositions, you don't mind it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Like if you, I don't know, somehow end up in the worst case of versing some comp that's like, I don't know, Cinder mid, Jace top, and then like Ezreal Lux
Right.
or Caitlyn Lux bot. Like
Right.
at that point, you would much be better off just like rage splitting and playing to like take
Yeah.
towers and as many camps as possible because you're going to show up to the fight and just be completely useless.
Yeah.
But yeah, the more melees again, the better.
Now, I love this little clip here because it looks like a bit of deja vu, right? Because it's pretty
The
similar
mid
to
lane
before.
experience.
It's the
Yeah.
mid lane experience, but it's also, I would say, this is the Cassio experience, isn't it? This is the weakness of one of Cassio's biggest weaknesses, right? You're vulnerable. If you don't have your flash, people are going to want to kill you. And also, remember nowadays, right? I mean, Arcane just doesn't give HP like it used to.
Yeah.
So you're very squishy on one item. You are essentially a full class cannon at this stage.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think like that is definitely like one of the more difficult things about Cassio, but you have to be super aware of like the windows. So like there, for example, like my Leona was in base while it was Brom's tempo to make a move, and I was pushing aggressively when I shouldn't have been. And just as an immobile mage in general, this is the kind of stuff that you have to be even more hyper aware of. Because like here, with Kha'Zix killing grubs, I know Kha'Zix is top side, so I'm heavily hugging to bot vision. But like if you see Leona is resetting, but Brom is on his way mid, and we know that because like they already forced bot lane out. So here I'm pushing for Prior on a turn that I shouldn't. And because like we could win this 2v2, Kindred and I, but once Brom shows up, there's no point, right? So it's really Brom being here that seals the deal. And that is, I would see this as more just like, yeah, any immobile mage, but especially like a flashless Cassio, is going to get punished if you're unaware of like this timing.
I'll be honest though, I actually think as well, this would have still been very, very difficult for you to win, even if Braum wasn't here, because you didn't have ultimate. You had no flash, no
Yeah.
ulti.
Yeah, I guess
It's
Kindred is null too.
Kindred, well, this is still hard. So I agree. I think this is more of a mid lane specific thing. You're contesting prior on a wave that you shouldn't be contesting prior. Cassio just gets punished probably more easy than a lot of other champions because you're not only an immobile mage, but you're also incredibly low range, and your wave clear is pretty, average.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll continue on a little bit. Game's now devolving into chaos. Welcome to Korean
Yeah,
solo
I was
queue.
not too happy here where Echo has like 5 kills. I was, pinged him
Yeah,
live a
look
few
at that.
times.
I mean, you were
Yeah,
doing
that
such a good
definitely
job. Now
annoyed me.
it's 5-2. We're 1-3. So this will be interesting to see how you turn this one around. So what's your
Yeah.
philosophy here? What's your mindset here? You're 1-3. Some chaos has happened. You've died a few times. What's going through your head? How are you thinking as a Cassio here?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm still feeling pretty fine. Like, I outscale Echo, and I still beat Echo 1v1. So I was like, yeah, I actually wasn't too worried. Like, it sucks, and it definitely, like, delayed my items a little bit. But, like, still, you will win 1v1 against these champs. Unless they can 100-0 you, you will always win the extended trade. And again, like, you outscale all these champs in team fights so hard. So I mean, I guess I was annoyed in the sense that, like, Echo got 3 kills. But I wasn't worried. Like, yeah, I know I'd just destroy him.
Yeah, I mean, this is by the way, I just want to say, what a beautiful usage of your eye. I love what you do here. Like, you just hide your ability so well. So you don't rush, you just stay poised, relax, Q, E, and then you weave that in beautifully. I mean, and it's so hard for Echo to react. It's so hard for him to dodge. I don't even think he had really ultimate there anyway, but just a really, really nice play.
Yeah.
That changes the game. Now, another thing, I mean, just from my experience with Cassio, if I look at a game like this where I know Cassio is good holistically for the comp, even if I die, I'm 1-3. I don't really care because I got 2 dragons in my back pocket. This game is going to stall out, right? Like when I look at a game, I got 2 dragons. I'm thinking, great. Sure, I'm in a bit of a power trough, but if I can get to 2 items and the game hasn't imploded and the game's not over, great.
Yeah, that is one of the nice things about Cassio is that like you definitely have the ability to win lane on this champ, but you don't actually like have to win lane. Like if you are picking it into good comps, even if you come out of lane 0-0, that is fine. And again, like you can snowball. You shouldn't see that as like, oh, I'm just gonna play passive early and just like hope nothing happens. Like you can definitely do a lot, but if nothing happens, like don't feel pressured, I guess, to force things to happen that don't need to happen.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, this was a bit tragic.
Yeah, this is I mean, I really want to break this one down, Sean, because this to me looks like a very kind of classic Cassio mistake, right? So I think there's a few things here. So number one, you're sitting on a lot of gold, which is more of, you don't really want to be here, right? But it looks like a bit of an opportunistic play. You're trying to back up your team. One thing that Cassio struggles with is running into the enemy like this. It's a bit hard, right? I mean, look, obviously depending on the champions, but Cassio, you lack gap closes, especially when you're not running Ghost. And if you're running into the enemy and especially when you're versing champions that have really good peel like Braum or, I mean, there's many champions like this, but even, more traditional kiting oriented AD carriers like Ezreal and things like that, it's very, very hard. And so you need to be very careful with running into enemies. And this is typically what I would see working with Cassios is where they think, oh yes, I'm really strong. I have all this damage. But it's like, okay, yeah, you probably don't want to be, smashing your face into people yet. Try and maybe make them come into you a little bit more. Or again, isolate those lower range targets in the sideline or something.
Yeah, I can agree. I mean, I definitely think that like chasing into the jungle in general, like with low vision, is kind of bad. Here, it was like, I mean, like you said, a lot of gold and also disrespecting the top TP. Like Aurora has so much control over top and then just like TP'd in and went from bad to worse. But I probably, especially with having that much gold, probably shouldn't even be there in the first place.
So now we're moving into kind of the mid game here. The lane assignments are getting a little bit swapped up. Where is your head at here? What are you kind of thinking of here?
Yeah, so Cassio is an absolute monster on the sideline. Cassio can beat almost any champ. Like, you do have to be careful of very strong ganking combos. Like, if you're against something like Nocturne LeBlanc, that can be very scary. But even a lot of top laners that are like built for 1v1, like Camille and Fiora, Cassio will actually beat these champs 1v1 as long as you're like not too far behind. So it's really, really important that you are pushing the side lane as far as you can, basically. And obviously, if you don't have enough vision, then you should be careful, right? Like, you still need to respect the enemy jungler, but the further in you can pressure and like take away cams or towers or whatever, that is, you're very, very happy with that.
Yeah, but this is dream scenario, right? Your jungler hovering you. You've got a favorable matchup in the side lane. You're 2 levels up. I mean, this is just Cassio 101. I mean, this looks like an amazing scenario to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I use my ult for slow. Like, ult CD is actually very short on this champ, so like, don't be afraid to just throw out your ult, dude. Like, a lot of the time, people sometimes type this to me in Twitch chat, by the way, like, you missed your ult, and I'm like, no, I'm just using it for the slow, It's completely fine to use it for the slow.
Right, because in that scenario, I mean, if you don't use it for a slow, maybe Echo has the opportunity to E-flash out, and then you can't get on top of him, and then he escapes. So,
yeah.
100%. Okay, so we're getting basically, I think we have second item gold in. Yeah, we do have second item gold in base here, so we're just shoving this one all the way out. Okay, beautiful. So it looks like we decided to go for a bit of a recall. We are completing our Rylai's here, working towards your Leandros, I'm assuming, after this, since no one's really getting any MR. We TP in mid to go for a bit of a siege, and I'm assuming this is also in preparation for a dragon coming up.
Yeah, I would say this was a misplay, but I kind of TP'd in thinking like, okay, I'm like quite strong and my team's getting engaged on by Aurora ult. But I think generally like TPing into a fight on Cassio is like not really what you want to do because you're not a great flanker. And like, if you TP directly into a fight, a lot of the time you can be too far up. So it like kind of worked out. But I would say generally try not to do stuff like that unless you think it's going to be like a really good fight. And also like if you use your TP in mid game, it limits your side laning options until your TP comes back up. So yeah, in hindsight, I would not have done this. But in the moment, I like pulled the trigger because I was, I guess, worried that my team was going to die. So yeah.
So in hindsight, with the beauty of hindsight, typically where would you want to go? Would you go top and then just shove that one out and then TP later on? Or what would you want to do exactly?
I think I would I would probably just take the portal to dragon and try keep my TP. I think it's better to keep TP than it is to walk top and then knowingly use your TP to go to the drag. Like for me, I really value the threat of TP more than actually using it because it kind of, I mean, the rule I always set for myself is that TP gives you permission to side lane. So if your team fights mid at a random time, you can still get to them. So I actually try and keep my TP up for almost all of the mid game, unless, there's a fight, obviously, just to make sure I always can get farm. So yeah, I would just walk to dragon and then farm bot lane after or something.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting. I feel like this is a bit of I feel like there's a lot of options you have here, in my opinion. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
I think I like running mid and taking the portal and just running into the area and putting your body in the area because then you can kind of secure the dragon, secure the control, and be there for a fight just in case. But I also kind of like the idea of running top, shoving top out because you put a lot of pressure on the enemy. If they can't get an engage off, because it looks like the engage has already failed, they're going to have to, like, imagine if you don't TP now, your team just disengaged now, and
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
like
I
running
agree.
top. You put a lot of pressure on the enemy right now. You could be whacking away on top wave, starting to shove this one out. Echo doesn't have TP, Aurora doesn't have TP. You would be in a pretty good spot to like kind of make them make a choice, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I mean, the luxury of being ahead is that, like, right now we actually do have just a lot of good options, right? And like you said, like, there is merit to go top. I think, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, honestly, what's better. Like, maybe
There's
it
so
is
many
better to go
options.
top. Yeah, that's the decision I made in the moment, though, and that was my thinking. But I think,
Yeah.
yeah, if you went top, I guess only thing to be careful of is, like, when Kha'Zix redeploys back on the map. But I think you definitely have time, right? You have at least, like, a couple waves of pushing top.
Yeah, exactly. Especially since the Dragon was coming up. I don't think Cousins would be running top. I think you could shove top and then move down as well. You could even do that as well. Yeah, I think one thing that I've realized as well is that sometimes in League, you don't need to make the perfect macro decision. Your decision just needs to make somewhat sense. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
as long
Like,
as you,
it's
like, execute it well, right?
yeah. As long as it's not the worst play, and as long as you execute it well, it's usually not too bad. Now, I love this. This is what I love doing on Cassio. So you're in the area. We're here earlier before the objective. Now, if the enemy want to fight, you can control this choke. You've got this beautiful W, zoning W here, making them come into you. Excellently timed R there. Kindred R kind of saves the Echo here. Moving on to the next target. This was an exceptional fight, Shock. I mean, this is, in my opinion, what separates you from a lot of the Cassio. So let's get into this one. I love this.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So
break this one down.
very first thing I think, and I do this on lots of carries, but especially on a channel like Casio, I think just in general that it makes decision making way harder if they have imperfect information. Like, I will always, as a carry, try hide myself before the fight starts. So, like, assassins can't find me, and they have to, like, think about where I could be as opposed to, like, where I am.
Right. So
So
this is
I
their
just,
vision
like,
here. You're in this
yeah,
bush.
so I knew this was pink, obviously, and I want to, like, hide myself here as long as I could. Again, to, like, make things difficult. Like, if you're Echo, for example, or Kha'Zix, like, I am the highest value target probably, so they have to, like, find a way to kill me early, right? But if they don't see me until the fight already starts, it could be that I'm, like, near the bot turret, right? Or it could be that I'm, like, over the wall, right? But again, they don't know. So hiding yourself for as long as you can until the fight starts, I think, is very useful, especially because you can't really poke from range anyway. So it's not like, yeah, it's not like you're losing damage by just, like, AFKing in a bush. Yeah, so I really try and do that.
I love that. That's really, really good. And okay, so what I also love, I'm sorry, guys, to the spectators, I'm going to be replaying this because so many little details. I just really want to emphasize your R here, right? So look at what you do. So you start with W as a bit of a zoning tool. You land that, and then you land your Q, which is great, and you're just whacking away, and then you are in such an awkward timing. You make it so awkward,
Yes, that's important. Yeah, it
like
is,
like
like, something random,
like
and then
it's just
that is what
random.
makes it good. Yeah.
And that's what makes it good. Exactly right. Because Echo's waiting. Is he going to use it now? Is she using it now? Is she using it now? Is she holding it? And then you just use it at such a weird time. So Echo has to face check it. And then what I also love is you don't waste your time in the Kindred. You move to the next targets and you're posturing just so aggressively there because you know you have the resources to do so. So yeah, I just love this. Great W's, great R's, good, putting your character in the right area before the neutral objective. Just really, really clean Cassio fundamentals there. Good execution.
Yeah, I think, again, like, with the ulti as well, like, it is fine just to use ulti for, like, a big chunk of damage as well. Like, obviously it is, if you're DPSing a single target, generally it's better just to keep Eing. But if you're hitting, like, 3 or 4 targets, even if you don't stun them, it is just a big chunk of damage. And that's, like, another reason why I feel like it is fine just to, like, throw it out at somewhat random timing. Because if it didn't stun Echo there, I mean, obviously it's, like,
You're
way
fine.
better if it does. But yeah, like, it's fine if it just deals a huge amount of damage to their team.
So now we are approaching our third item. We're not quite there yet. Still getting into the side lane, trying to match this Echo here. And we see a bit of shenanigans going on again.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to adapt. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's
this was
another
a bit
example
of a
there, right?
misplay.
With the R
Yeah,
in terms of the
yeah, I
slow.
was just looking for it. Yeah, this here, I think this also was kind of like a more of a macro misplay. Like, here, again, I disrespected the Aurora TP, and, like, the Aurora engage is so good. So I'm, like, kind of making a play here, but, like, if you look at the map, it's like Gangplank has to catch ball wave, and, like, Kindred only just finished her wolves. So, like, I'm playing too aggro without my team really here, and then, like, surprise, Aurora TP's in, and suddenly this fight is looking not so hot. And then, yeah, I think I end up dying.
Yeah, and then Echo's able to flank you a little bit here, and it gets a bit messy. So yeah, this is just again, a lot of your mistakes in this game, I would say, are less Cassio specific and more just like mental stack
Yeah, just
overload. There's a
general.
lot
Yeah, I'd
happening
agree.
and missing information.
Yeah, I'd
But
agree.
yeah. Okay, so continuing on a little bit here, we'll fast forward on this next deployment. We still don't have our Leandries. Dragon's
Yeah,
not coming up for
that's
a
why
little bit.
their death is so costly, I think. Is, if you die right around the corner from a spike and you have to walk back on the map without it, that really hurts. So like deaths like that, some deaths are like that one we had in that top jungle fight early, like they don't really matter, right? Because we pushed out the wave and we had all our
Yeah.
gold spent. But yeah, that's a really rough death, like not having Leandry for this.
Okay, so I want to pick your brain here on this one. So basically, you see your team posturing aggressively around this top side. We've got to pick onto the Aurora.
Yeah.
Now, what is your mindset here, and what are you kind of thinking about? What's running through your head here?
Yeah, so two things. Like one, Casu does Baron pretty quickly, but it's definitely a lot slower without Leandry, which I don't have. And also be very, very careful DPSing Baron if you're starting with less than like full mana or nearly full mana, or if you don't have a blue buff. Because a lot of the time I see people start Baron as like half mana Cassio, and you actually will run before you kill it, or you'll be so low mana that you actually can't fight after. So yeah, that's like a big mistake I see a lot of casters make, is just starting it way too early or without the necessary resources and then just being unable to actually finish it. And that feels horrible.
So you got absolutely
I got
annihilated from
smoldered.
the Baron and
Yeah.
the Smolder. Um, we got smoldered here.
Yeah, smoldering Kazakhs. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I like the attempt though. I do like this fundamentally from a Cassio perspective, like kind of making the enemy come to you around the neutral. It was just a lot harder than it looks like you guys anticipated.
Yeah. Yeah, here I go for the base TP. So this is one nice thing I guess you can do with TP, is like if you do get randomly chunked out or lose your mana, it is fine just to TP back into a fight on like full HP and then be strong. Sadly, I was like a tiny bit late. If I'd managed to do that,
Yeah.
I think I could have based a little bit earlier, and then this would have looked a lot better. But I managed to send these 4 dudes packing. Not going to win me 1v4.
Yeah. I mean, again, another example of your R, right, is in like you're not afraid to just use it. So I think you miss your Q and you're waiting for your W to come up. You hit that Q, which is great. And then you just kind of use it for the slow. If it lands, it lands. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's a good chunk of
Yeah,
damage. Sets up your other spells, right? So yeah, not too bad.
yeah. I mean, the nice thing
Baron.
there was like I managed to get them low enough that they couldn't do Baron. That was really my main goal. Is I knew that if they could, stall it out and start Baron, it would be really awkward. But if I could just, commit whatever I need to commit, basically. And again, like ult is such a short cooldown that you can just like throw that shit out. I actually thought that when Cassie was getting nerfed, that it would be ulti CD, because I think it has like a really short cooldown for like no reason. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's like super short, but yeah, it feels good. You can just use it as almost like a basic ability, honestly. Like, it definitely don't put, obviously if you can get a big ult, it's great, but don't put like so much weight on it that you like never use it.
So this is a bit of an awkward scenario because we don't have TP. So
Yeah,
we don't really want to stay here, right? We probably want to collect this wave and then maybe rotate mid again. I'm assuming to get a bit of control with the team. We'll see what we do.
yeah. I was quite careful here because I'm like hard weak sided. I think I knew that they would never start Baron because we have Gangplank, and like Gangplank ult will always kill them if they try it. But I don't know, if you go back there and you turn on their team vision, I'm pretty sure that like, yeah, it's so scary for me to be bot right now.
Yeah.
And like for me, right, my jungler is top and all my teammates are top and I have like no vision bot side. So if I stay under this turret, I am going to die, which is why I decided to reset here.
Yeah, and not to mention, you want to make sure that you're coming mid first before the dragon, right? Because dragon is the most important objective here. That's the first, your soul point, right? Your soul dragon.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is come out of mid. You want to boot together mid, get that control, and then move in together, right? So I'm assuming that's what you would do.
Yeah.
Yep, nice. Regroup mid, and we'll create a bit of a front to back here. So let's take a look at your ability usage here. So again, beautiful R. Looks like you clipped the Kazakhs there. So let's take a look at this one.
Yeah, so thoughts in this moment where Gangplank is pushing top, so like we don't actually really want this fight, but if we can get a pick, like it's amazing, right? And I think that's what happened here is like Braum overextended a little too hard, and then I don't even know how I stunned Kha'Zix. Maybe. Oh, I guess he's like
Oh, no, he
flashing.
didn't. I think it was Leona. It was Leona.
Maybe
Look.
it was just the Leona
Yeah,
CT. Yeah, I'm
Leona
not
ulti.
sure.
I think, yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at this. One thing I'm noticing, by the way, as a general rule of thumb, you are starting a lot of these fights with W. Is that because you're trying to get 2 Ws off in a fight? Or what's the philosophy there?
Yeah, so I mean, thing is, like, W is kind of like Syndra E, where if you invest it badly, it can be really rough. But the nice thing about W is it basically guarantees Q, and then if you guarantee Q, right, like you're getting your rallies, and then you'll always be able to chase them. So yeah, don't be afraid, I guess, to start a fight with W. At the same time, like, be very careful throwing it out randomly, because a lot of the time, like, the moment you use W and it expires, that like 7-second or so window when it's down, you will get engaged on, especially if you don't have ult. So yeah, it's like it is situational, obviously, but I think similar to ult, like you can just use it if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got a little bit of a pick there. Echo wasn't really in position, and now this should be able to secure our soul, which is huge.
Yeah, Hextech Soul also is very, very good on Cassio for chasing people down. So once I got this, I was like pretty sure that it was GG, but they do have a Smolder, and yeah, that is a little scary.
Let's just take a look at this though. So what you end up doing is you end up kind of being a gatekeeper for the smolder. So you kind of just run at the smolder here.
Yeah.
Throw your W down. Beautiful. Nice.
Yeah, one thing as well is that like don't be afraid to just like throw out Qs. Like Q, even though it got nerfed recently, Q is a very short CD and does a shit ton of damage. So you can just throw out your Qs randomly, and if one hits, it's like, I mean, if you like mouse over my Q right now, that is probably like a 500 damage spell. Yeah, and also it applies Leandry, right? So there's like a really good chance that it just chunks someone like 700 health or so, and that can be the difference between them fighting or not.
I love this. Okay, I love this little detail here. So when someone's face checking, you place it slightly behind them. I love this. Just to highlight, I want to highlight this because it's a small detail, but it matters a lot. It may not matter a lot here because it's a Braum, but as a general premise, look at that. So now Braum has no way to go and has to walk through the entirety of that W. Just a little detail there. Very nice. So yeah, I mean, now at this stage, I mean, you're so happy, right? You're 3.5 items. You know, you're super strong. You're versing a low range composition. They can't burst you through the seraphs. You've got your flash up, which is a bonus. What's your mindset? What's going through your head here?
Yeah, so at this point, I mean, I kind of just think I'm going to run over the game. Probably the main thing I was thinking about is like, okay, I probably need to flash Aurora ult in some way, like either flash out of it or just flash the initial engage of it. Or alternatively, I could R flash onto Smolder. Smolder just lost both his thumbs to Leona just then. So now I knew that, like, okay, even though Smolder is long range, you know, he will have to move up eventually, and that could be a window to look for the R flash. And R flash is something that every caster player needs to know. I think it's like similar to a Zero Shuffle, where like people learn the mechanic and then do it way too often. But it probably does get used like around once a game or so. So you should know how to do it.
Right. It's not really something you're like looking for. It's like if the opportunity presents itself, you'll do it.
Yeah.
Oh, so unfortunate how he's able to get that R off.
To be honest, I probably should have altered him there as he was face checking. Like, again, I shouldn't really be holding on to it, but
yeah, got a bit greedy there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a look.
So that's exactly
This is it. All right, so let's take a look at this. So, okay, number one, you were going to attend top, but then we see the enemy fight. So then Echo's running into us. We see this as a beautiful opportunity to fight with our team. You do the W behind. This is probably a scenario where you probably don't need to. You can probably just kill, right?
Yeah, I agree.
The stun. So the premise is there where you're trying to prevent them from running away, but because it's an Echo who has you probably just better. And you got
it's definitely
stun.
A bit of a misplay. Yeah,
put it directly in the middle.
Kill. Yeah, I agree.
That's still fine. You still burn the R from the
Yeah, it wasn't bad
from the Echo, which is huge, and you get a good chunk. Now you see Smolder out of position. And we just kind of send it here with an R flash. And again, you know it's not going to stun either way. It's just a good setup.
Exactly. I just know that I'm going to get the slow, and then like if we get the slow, like we get the kills, and then we're going to get Baron. And after that, I mean, the game's not completely over again because they have Smolder, but after that, right, like you feel so good, so comfortable.
I mean, Hex XL with the Baron is basically over at this stage. Let's maybe take a look at one last team fight towards the end. See, maybe there's a fight here we'll take a look at, see if there's anything we can take away from this one.
So this was Elder spawning soon, and we had Gangplank pushing top, so we did want to try get control. And I think we got Smolder's Flash here again, which is pretty good. And then, yeah.
I mean, it's just dream scenario. They're running into you like idiots. We'll take it. We'll take it. So look, overall, I mean, just a really and Balkan's left the game. Yeah. No, really good game, man. Really, really good game. And I think, look, it's important to note, I think a good way to end this one is not every Cassio game is going to look like this. You know, this is a good Cassio angle in draft. If you're playing versus high range compositions, the games are going to look different. The macro is going to be different. You would be playing the side lane more. You'd probably might even be calling for hover more from your jungler. You may not be ARAM as willing to ARAM around neutral objectives. The game would be slightly different. But overall, yeah, I think that the ability usage is great. Early lane tips are great. And I think it also really demonstrates, your philosophy with Cassio, which is with the itemization as well, not opting for the roll. I give you a little bit earlier spiking, a little bit earlier spiking in the game. So, yeah, any other kind of comments that you would like to share here?
Not really, other than, I guess the back to kind of like the Cassio one trick thing, because a lot of people do want to be Cassio one tricks, right? Like it's a fun champ, right? Like it's probably my favorite champ. I would encourage you though. I think it is better to have kind of a small champion pool with Cassio. So for me, when I was like very new to League, I saw EasyHern play Cassio when I was like gold 2, and I was like, oh my god, like I want to play that champ. And I played Cassio almost exclusively up to Diamond 2. Must have played like a good 500 games or so, and I was like hard stuck in like that kind of D2 to back then D5 zone. I would just go like up and down like every week through those ranks. And then eventually I realized like, hey, Cassio blind just really isn't that valuable. And I think like I started blind picking Ari and then counter picking with Cassio, and I hit master like 3 days or a week later. Like it really was not long, because I was just putting myself into such hellish games because I was so set. And like, to be honest, I thought that like, oh, I should just like one trick Cassio, but it is a champ that gains a lot of value for being a counter pick. So like, look, if you want a one trick Cassio, you can make it work, but I would highly encourage you to either play her in a different lane, like bottle top, or to use her as a counter pick and then have like a more stable blind pick in your pool as well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think being a Casio one trick is absolute suicide. So you heard it here first, guys. You heard it from the Casio master here. Don't really want to follow in his footsteps. Outside of that, man, well, I appreciate you for taking the time. An awesome little game there. You're killing it. Hopefully we can see you in Chal soon on the Korean ladder.
Should be. Yeah.
And then we'll hopefully do another video soon together.
All right. Sounds good to me.
Beautiful.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Shock. Catch you later, guys.
Well, good. Bye-bye.